transmit about 5,000 megawatts of power. But even at that, you can see the gap between what we can generate and what we can transmit. And this means that there's a gap somewhere. Normally, if we are generating 13,000 to 15,000 megawatts, the transmission capacity should be in the region of about 30,000 megawatts. And the distribution capacity should be in the region of 45,000 megawatts. So that's the dilemma we're in. So that's where we are today. And you referred in your introduction, you talked about the collapse of suspension tower along the Udukwane-Kotekwene transmission. That's true. And it is because incidentally, it was that line was built by Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited and commissioned about 5 years ago. So the truth of the matter is that we cannot live as a country with incessant vandalism of substations, transmission lines, and so on and so forth. That is also very injurious to the development of the power sector in the country. Now that government is making efforts to expand transmission capacity all over the countries, you find wicked people go to this installation and destroy or I don't know what they did to a 330 kV transmission tower. That's really very sad.
Current electricity generated in Nigeria is inadequate to meet the demands of households and businesses. As a result, Nigeria has a low per capita consumption of electricity. In your breakdown of the challenges confronting the power sector, you did mention at a fora the takeover of ECN in 1951 with emphasis on obsolete assets, or using your words, in a run-down operation condition, raising the need for an immediate rehabilitation. Fast forward now to 2022, will serve the needs of Nigeria.
I'll take this question in two dimensions, because I hear the national grid, we don't need a national grid, we don't need a grid. I disagree with that. Nigeria needs a national grid. That does not preclude states from having their own grids. That does not preclude us from having local grids all over the places. Nigeria is a very big country, 98,000 square miles of vast and arid land. So we need multiple of it. But look, in recent time, you know that America has what we call a national grid, what we refer here as a national grid. And one of the states that is not connected to the grid is Texas. When there was a problem with the power supply in Texas, the reason why it took so long for them to get power supply was because they were not on the national grid. They will have been able to supply them power through that alternative source. So I want to disabuse the mind of people that it is wrong for us to say that we don't need a national grid. No, we need a national grid. What we need to do is to modernize grids, to have a loop system, whereby if we have this kind of problem in that we have in Udukwane, Kotekwene, we can bypass that sector and still feed the rest of the nation from another source. So it's a long process, but that's what is ideal in a country as big as Nigeria. I believe that we still need a national grid anytime, any day. However, you are talking about where we are today. The truth of the matter is that what is lacking in Nigeria, if you read that paper, is the absence of a master plan. And this is a problem with all the sectors of Nigeria. We have a master plan, maybe a 30-year master plan with 5-year rolling plans, and we are disciplined enough to follow this through. Now, what will happen is that every 5 years we look at the plan and we say, where are we? Where are we supposed to be? What have we left undone? What have we done that we are not supposed to do? And then we review the plan, and then we move on to the next stage. That is the ideal situation. It is, and if you read that paper, you will see that at the beginning, there was a company called Tractor Bell in the 60s that was engaged by a consultancy firm to draw up a master plan for Nigeria. Indeed, Nigeria had master plans in all of the sectors of Nigeria, in roads, in this. But over the time, when the governments came in, they abandoned these master plans and they went on to do things like, as in fire brigade approach to doing things. And that's what disrupted the plant. I told you that at the beginning, even in 1896, when power was supplied, to, I think it was Jora at that time, I can't remember now, the street lighting, we found out that the demand was growing at a rate that was far exceeded the available power. Now, if we had had a master plan and we had followed this master plan, we will have been able to catch up with the demand and maybe surpass it as well. What is happening in most of the other countries today is that they have surpassed the demand, and they have excess that they can always bring on board through a properly planned looping system that makes room for a national grid and also mini grids or state grids and mini grids all over the country. So that's what is lacking in Nigeria today. And we have no option but to, and that's what this government is doing, to, to tackle all of these problems at the same time. You can see that through the Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited, government is intervening in building injection substations and distribution networks all over the country. This is not the duty of government to do now, but because of a precarious situation in which we have found ourselves, government is even still spending money to improve the distribution networks, and you can see the many interventions in the transmission sector as well.
It's no news that the deficit in the power sector impacts greatly on the nation's economy, as this has made the cost of doing businesses in Nigeria very high, resulting in prices of goods and services skyrocketing. Yet we talk about the need and our willingness to attract investors into the country. Is this just a case of government paying lip service?
No, government is a continuum. And it's so unfortunate that the Muhammadu Buhari administration is the one that is the recipient of all of this. I have said to people that what we are reaping today is the result of 40, 30 years of neglect. We are only reaping what we have sown or what we have not sown 40, 30 years back. One of the best things that this government has done is that it has laid a foundation, and it has been able to prove that government is a continuum, not in words, but in action. So you have seen that all of the previous projects being executed by previous governments, even 45 years ago, this government has taken conscious efforts to complete them, to restart them, and to complete them. And that is what is going to happen in the power sector. So I don't believe that we are not doing enough, but it will take us some time to get there. This issue of power supply has become compounded in recent times because of increase in the cost of diesel and so on and so forth. And I am sure that if we continue with what we're doing, it will just be a matter of time before we can solve the problems. But I keep repeating, look at the work that we're doing in Ondo South Central District. That work has been completed, but the supply to the place, which is another project that is being executed by the Niger Delta Development Commission, has not been completed. But in the interim, I know how many times we've had to go and repair substations, lines that are vandalized by our people. And I say that circumspectly, by our people. I have not seen a people, if your father builds a house for you, you will not say that because water is not in the house yet, or you don't have beds in the house, go there and start removing the doors and the roof and the windows. That is what we are confronted with in Nigeria today. That government builds an infrastructure, and even before that infrastructure is ready for use, Nigerians, because I don't believe that these people who come to do this thing are from Mars. Nigerians go there and vandalize them and destroy what we have. I think it is the duty of every Nigerian, and I don't want to hear that, oh, people don't have ownership of it. How else can people have ownership of a power line that is built for their use?
Let me put you on the spot, Engineer Oyedele. You are from the Southern Senatorial District of Ondo State, which has been in utter darkness for years. With your position at the Niger Delta Power Holding of Nigeria, critics say the narrative should have been different. What do you say?
I've had a lot of talks. In fact, I remember recently somebody said he cannot supply power to his area. What the federal government of Nigeria has done in the Ondo South, no government has ever done that in any other senatorial district in Nigeria. I stand to be corrected. You know, I challenge anybody. Look, by the time this government came into office, all of the distribution networks in the 6 local governments have been totally vandalized. No single transformer was working. Today we have installed, and we have installed over 100 transformers all over the Senatorial district. We have built injection substations all over the places. Like I said, we have been talking with NEC, with the stakeholders, and we are bringing power directly from Omotosho to the Ondo South Senatorial District. When this process is completed, Ondo South Senatorial District will be a model for the rest of the country. I can assure you that. What we need to do, and don't forget that it is not the duty of either NDPHC or the federal government to do this. But because when the vice president came to campaign in the area, he was informed about our dilemma, he made a promise, and that is why he approved and directed NDPHC to intervene. And that's what we have done. We have built, I mean, you know, today, there's public power supply in Osrc, University of Science and Technology. Nobody can dispute that. You know, this thing don't fly from the air. It is because the network around there have been, and we have reticulated all the other networks all over the country. We are waiting for the 132, 33 kV substation in Erinje to be completed. And once it is completed, the whole area will have uninterrupted power supply directly from Omotosho Power Company that is owned by Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited. So people who lack information should seek information and stop talking about, there's no political consideration to, look, I'm from the area. I have a home there and I live there. I grew up there. I started my life, my education in Okitikwukwa. And I had my primary school in virtually all of the local governments, in Odiaye, in Ilutitun, in Ikoya, in Okitikwukwa, in Akotogo. So I understand that terrain very well.
The central bank is building power plants. NNPC is as well building. The proliferation of government agencies in the power sector is a major challenge. What could be responsible for the lack of harmony in that sector?
You know, most of these agencies, everybody, like I said in my lecture, we have about 26 different agencies working in the power sector. Maybe by now it will have been more than that. And we have multiplicity of donor agencies and funding organizations pumping money into the system. And they don't really know what, everybody works in silos. Everybody is working in silos. So that's what is responsible for CBN. They don't know what the other party is doing. That's why CBN is building power stations, NNPC is building power stations, and if you come to Nigeria today, you don't even know where to go to. You don't know what agency to go to. And I suggested that there must be a clearing house, to deal with the power sector so that we can harmonize what each party is doing. So if people, look, let me give you an example. There's the Japanese investment that came to and is sited around the Obudukatu Ranch, whereas we are constructing the transmission line that goes to that area. Our transmission line is still uncompleted. They have completed their distribution projects. So, but if there was synergy, we'll have been able to work together to achieve, the desired objective. So that is the problem that we have. Everybody works in silos. Everybody is doing what somebody else can do, and that's a big problem in the sector. But I believe that government is trying to resolve that now by making sure that there's a clearing house. Also, the other problem we have is with the regulating agency, which should superintend and supervise this sector. They must be given the teeth to do what they're supposed to do. They must be manned by competent people whose tenure is not subject to political or any other kind of influence. And I believe that government is working in that direction now.
All right, Engineer Idele, you canvassed the decentralization of the national grid. But do you think states or regions will have the financial muscle to fund such a project?
Look, that's also a big point. When I see the states, the answer is no, as the states are presently are. Maybe one or two. Maybe Lagos, one or two other states will be able to do something. So I get worried when there's this clamor for government to release projects to the states. Look, let me give you an example. When we talk about roads, for instance, like the Yoruba people say, Eka Odogba, that is, the strengths of the various states are different, and the priorities of the various state governments are also different. So all of these trunk A roads that link states together, if you leave it in the hands of states, if you divest it and you leave it in the hands of states, and state A, take for instance Lagos, on the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. The Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, the Lagos State portion ends at Julius Baja. And the Lagos State can fund the rebuilding of its road to Julius Baja. From Julius Baja to somewhere after Ogere is Ogun State. What if Ogun State doesn't have the financial muscle to do that? You travel to Julius Baja and that's the end of it. And now from after Ogere to Ibadan is Oyo State government. Even if Ogun State can do their own, what if Oyo State cannot fund their own, or they don't consider it as their priority? they consider education as their priority. So this is the reason why some of these things are still in the hands of federal government, because we have not gotten to that level. We have not gotten to that level as a nation. And yes, the argument is, oh, well, let's reduce the revenue that accrues to the federal government and give it to the states. But it still talks about priority. The priority of Ogun State is not the same as the priority of Benue State. So we have to continue to work together as a nation, you know, to ensure that we get the best. And it will just be a matter of time before, yes, I like I said in my opening statement, I agree that states should be given the power, and honestly, I don't think there's anything that stops any state government from doing any project. I mean, states have been participating in rural electrification forever. I remember very well. I mean, since 1982, I've been involved in rural education in Oyo State, and both and in Ondo State, in Osun State, in virtually all of the states of the federation. Local government rural education projects, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I was involved in all of them. So there's nothing that stops the state governments from participating in the power sector. I remember that in those days, when you have a state executing a project, the NEPA, as it were, then will write to them and say, oh, we are interested in this project, but you're already doing it, and so we hand it over to you. So the truth of the matter is that there's nothing, even in the Constitution today, that stops the state government from executing power projects. But the question is, do they have the fund?
The privatization of the power sector seems not to be yielding results, with the GENCOs as well as DISCOs working below expectation. Isn't this the situation in your view?
No. I don't want to say it is not yielding the results. There were mistakes that were made. For instance, it is my honest opinion that the companies that were chosen to manage the DISCOs don't have the requisite technical and financial capability to do what they're supposed to do. That's very, very key. And if you look at it in recent times, I mean, you have seen the protest against the DISCO that is responsible for Ondo State. You have seen the changes in the ownership of the Abuja Electricity DISCO Company Limited, which is as a result of the inability of the majority shareholders, or those who bought who have the largest shareholding, to meet their financial obligations. Look, if they cannot refund the money that they borrowed, how can they have money to improve and modernize the network under their area of control? You have seen what is happening in Ibadan DISCO as well. So these are, some of the others are still hidden. But the truth of the matter is that I can say generally that the privatization has failed. I can say that without any iota of doubt. That was done by the immediate past government. It was rushed. It was given to the wrong organizations. And I'm sure that government is looking at ways to make them perform. Suggestions are on the board, but I think a holistic review of the sector will be beneficial to the nation. The GENCOs, I mean, the GENCOs are there to do business, and they have the capacity. I mean, if any GENCO does not have the capacity to generate, that is a headache. I mean, there are other GENCOs who are ready to generate, and they are ready to put it on the grid or to sell it to eligible customers, which is one of the things that this government has done to create that eligible customer framework that will enable you to sell your power directly to a willing buyer. That is very, 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 very significant. So the GENCOs, I'm not sure there are too many problems with the GENCOs. I'm sure that, and then government, like I said, government is doing a lot in the transmission, but a lot still needs to be done.
Finally, Engineer Ife Oyedele, Nigeria is moving closer to a new political dispensation. You have advocated for a master plan that will reposition the country's power sector. Let's be futuristic now. What will be your blueprint for a Nigeria's power sector projecting into 2030?
No Nigerian must, and I put that must, bypass meters. No Nigerian must be seen to destroy public infrastructure. These Nigerians, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our friends, we live in, they are neighbors who do all of these things. So we as Nigerians, no matter how bad things are today, we have responsibility to do what is right. If you go to any country, Togo, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, America, you see how clean the streets are. Who do you think keeps the clean street? It is because majority of the citizens of those countries are determined not to throw trash on the road. Look, you still find one or two people who do it. And that is why it is easy for the law enforcement agencies in those countries to be able to apprehend those few people. But I tell you, if out of the 300-something million people in America, 300 million are throwing trash around, the police force in America will not be able to stop it. So what is happening in Nigeria is that majority of us are determined to do what is wrong. And we must stop it. Has no right to complain about this country.
Engineer Ife Oyedele has been sharing his perspectives with me on the challenges confronting the Nigerian power sector. Thank you so much for sharing your views.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure being with you. I hope I can come back again and again and again.
Thank you so much. Begin to wonder, do you think that at this point, with the population explosion that we're experiencing as a nation, is there any hope left in sight for Nigeria to begin to plan again? Or would you say it's too late? I'll start with you, Dr. Abimbola.
Well, it's not too late, but the greatest fear is that, are we even ready to go that way? Are we even ready to plan? Two issues. The existing plans we jettisoned, we didn't implement. So the governments, I'm not saying singular now, governments that failed, administrations that failed to implement or follow strictly the master plan, how do you expect the same set of people to plan for the future? We are not planning. Nigeria is very unfortunate because if you look at what is happening, I attended the University of Ibadan. Let me give you the example of the University of Ibadan. The University of Ibadan was founded in 1948. There are some halls of residence, like Melambe Hall was built in 1951. Up to today, when you traverse the whole of the campus, vast as big as that campus is today, you will never see any single electricity pole. Those who planned it, it was underlaid. Okay. Everything was underground. Till today, they are building, they are constructing, and they know all the master is on the before you do any construction in UI, you go to the master plan, you trace the electricity lines, and you connect. You don't just dig anyhow. Imagine Abuja that we built, Abuja that is not up to 40 years old. We are still erecting, we still erected some electricity posts, even in Abuja now. Everything ought to be planned. Abuja is the only city that was planned, but we are not implementing. And areas where the Europeans lived when they were colonizing us, Ikoyi, look at how Ikoyi was well planned. Ikoyi Gardens, it is this same military when they came that they cancelled it, they sold all the land. Ikoyi Gardens and Park in those days. It is just showing us, it's not only the military. It's not only the military that bought or that destroyed this country, even the political class. So we don't really have selfless leaders. Look at the southwest of Nigeria. What the planning that the Awolowo people, Awolowo era, let me call it an era, in the western Nigeria. Look at the foundation they laid. We are still eating from it, but we are not maintaining. If you go to Ikale side, the rubber plant, go to Palm, go to all those things, all over the up to Delta, Awolowo, they make sure that they plan for the future. The teak, we are still felling all these trees now. How many are we replacing? It's just showing the mindset of the average black man. Before I give my colleague to talk the chance, I read this morning, as of today, Lagos is the most populous city in Africa with 21.8 million residents. Lagos is followed by Cairo. So now, and the sad thing about the atlas.com that is giving us the figures, it says about 70 or 80% of those living in Lagos, they are living in slums. So that is just to tell you the gory picture we're having. But all hope is not lost. What we need is leadership that has the vision and is ready to do the right thing.
Okay, leadership that has the vision and is ready. You're smiling.
Definitely I have to smile because everything rises and falls with leadership. Except you get the leadership right, you are not likely to see a country.
You've always said this on this program, that
yes,
it's about the leadership.
It's about
but
leadership.
like he also raised today, he raised the issue of followers, the fact that you have citizens who go and damage structures that were put in place for our own benefit and our own use. They go and vandalize and go. Are the followers not culpable as well?
Well, if you look at it,
looking at where we are today.
If you look at it at the face value, you will also want to apportion blame to the followers. Followership too could be indicted as far as this is concerned. But if you look at it very critically and fundamentally, you will see that the whole thing lies with leadership. Because leadership is the one that will hold the steering, that will steer the steer the ship of state to whatever direction that they wish. But if the leadership is bereft of idea, or is corrupt, or is inept, what you will see is all what you are seeing in Nigeria today. I can point to many countries in the world where leadership came in at critical points and changed the narrative. I continue to mention Singapore. Before Lee Kuan Yew got to Singapore in 1965, it was a third world country that was far, far, far way behind Nigeria. But immediately the man came in, despite the corruption, despite the everything that did not point to development that you could see in Singapore, that made Singapore to be the laughing stock in Asia. You will see a Lee Kuan Yew that came in and said, we are going to change the narrative. And he did promise that in less than 10 years, that Singapore will be a first world nation. And in just less than that 10 years, Singapore leaped from an underdeveloped country to one of the best 10 economies in the world. So what do you ascribe that to? It's leadership. And when you continue to say you want to indict the followership in Nigeria, I will always want to say no. Because if you are saying the followership is bad, what happens whenever an average Nigerian finds himself in the US or in the UK? He behaves very well. He follows all the rules. He follows all the nuances that are there. But whenever I say Nigeria, there's nobody to regulate his activity. There's nobody to point the direction towards which he will follow to him. And by nature, every human being is intrinsically selfish, so to say. You want to grab anything he could to make sure that he lives well. But we should have a regulator that we say you cannot grab at the expense of the other person.
Like checkmating.
Like checkmating the excesses of that person. So if there's no checkmating of excesses, what you will always see is always akin to a state of nature where life is nasty, brutish, and short.
Please, let me just add to that. I talked about leadership, and he also talked about leadership. He has given us an example from Asia. Let's come to Africa. Even Rwanda. Rwanda came in 1994, battered civil war, genocide, so they had a foundation of corruption, of genocide, of mistrust, of ethnicity, name it. Somebody came in, and today everybody in Africa is running to Kigali. They want to go to Rwanda. That is leadership. Now let's come to electricity. You are talking of followers. He has rightly put it. I have always believed that it is not the followers that we should blame in this country. It is the leaders. It is the leaders that have a name. It is the leaders that steer the ship. Then you follow. A leader leads. Followers follow. Followers don't lead the leader. So don't let us blame the followers. Now let me give you an example of this electricity. Is it the followers that privatized, so to say, the distribution phase of electricity in Nigeria, to the effect that they sold it to companies, and the companies they sold it to, till today, citizens of Nigeria, landlords association, they buy the poles, they buy the cables, they maintain the transformer, any fault, they trace it, they fix it, and all those things they bought by the terms of privatization. Even after they had privatized, what everybody is still buying today, if you buy a pole, if you buy any cable, it belongs to a disco. And yet the discos are ineffective. And up till now, they have not been able to meter majority of Nigerians.
So you agree?
So is it the followers that we should blame for that, or the leaders? Those are the hems of affairs.
So you agree with Engineer Oyedele, who says that these Gencos as well as the discos have no financial and
They don't.
capacity.
They don't. They were done based on sentiment. And you know, we cannot be going to the history. Some of them, immediately after they gave this, they ceded all these things to them, we knew the role they played, even during elections. So we cannot be talking here. My own take is that Nigeria, we don't really have political parties. I don't want, that is why I hate mentioning parties. We have only one party in Nigeria. That is the party of the politicians. All others, they are just in colors. You wear PDP color, you wear APC color, SDP color. It's just the